What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants were recently named one of the most improved teams in the NFL this offseason. It was according to Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated, MMQB, I believe it was. Did an article recently, all of the guys on the panel did, and they picked their most improved team of the offseason. He went with the New York Giants. Now, he did point out that he thinks the Bears were also very improved, and I agree with that, but he ended up pivoting and saying, hey, the Giants have potential to really be a better team this upcoming season based on some of the roster moves that they made. Adding Malik Neighbors, he also cited Drew Lock being signed as the backup quarterback as one of the reasons that they're one of the most improved teams. I thought that was really interesting, and I definitely want to dive into that and unpack what he said with you, Alex, saying that we could see a Geno Smithian rise from Drew Lock this season. That was written in the article. Definitely want to unpack that and discuss that a little bit, but the Giants, they did improve their roster. Brian Burns is here. I think that the change in the defensive coordinator should help improve some of the productivity on the defense. Malik Neighbors leading the offense, but they did lose some of their best players. Xavier McKinney, Saquon Barkley. So I don't know how improved we really feel that they are, but I guess we'll go ahead and dive into that discussion and give our take on whether or not we think they are the most improved team in the NFL or not. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. Listen to Apple or Spotify. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what do you think, man? Are the Giants the most improved team in the NFL this offseason, or is your vote going elsewhere?
I don't know how that would be justified, but I'll try. I mean, the Giants added Malik Neighbors, but you lose Saquon Barkley. So is that like a rookie wash? Like, is that a wash? I'd say it's probably more favorable to Malik Neighbors. I think he does bring more value to this team because Devin Singletary is a solid back. I mean, he probably, let's say he offers 75% of what Saquon Barkley's production was last year. Malik Neighbors is going to add on another like 100%, right? So like you're getting a lot more value from Neighbors over whoever our WR1 last year was, and I don't really think we had one. So I think that we can kind of label this as like a newfound asset. It is a newfound asset. So I do think we got significantly better in the receiver core. The offensive line, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this unit got upgraded until I actually see it. I'm tired of projecting. I do think it will be better just based on the fact that I like Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon. But I need to see it on the football field. I'm tired of saying, yeah, this team's going to be so much better. Look at this. Look at these grades. Look at these numbers. Look what this guy did. I need to actually see it because I am starting to think that we might be cursed. Like, I got to sacrifice a goat or something to end this bad omen. So I don't know what to do now. But at the end of the day, this team got better on offense because you have better personnel. Now we see if we can actually apply that personnel. So on paper, you could say. On the defensive side of the football, you could argue that we got worse. And I think that the reason you could argue that is because Xavier McKinney is a very good football player. Tyler Nubin to Xavier McKinney, objectively, there is going to be a significant drop-off in production there. I think that as a rookie, Nubin is going to have a lot of learning experiences, right? I am not going to sit here and act like Xavier, Nubin's going to be just as good as McKinney. He might be 65% as good. That's a big drop-off. Then you lose Adoree Jackson, and Adoree Jackson as a boundary corner is good. He's good. He's not great. He's good. He's a terrible slot corner, but he's a good enough outside corner. Transitioning from him to Cordell Flott or Nick McLeod or whoever plays on the outside alongside DeAndre Banks, it is going to be a noticeable regression. So I do think that we did get worse there. I do think we got better in the trenches because of the Brian Burns addition. Does that offset the loss of Xavier McKinney and Adoree Jackson? It's hard to say because they play different positions. But let's say it's break even. Like losing McKinney and Adoree Jackson and adding Brian Burns, let's say it's break even. You didn't really get better or worse in the defensive side of the football. So, really the only addition you got here is John Runyon, Jermaine Illuminor, and Malik Neighbors. And that is a sizable improvement. But, go look at a team like the Houston Texans. Like, they just added a ton of talent. They got Stephon Diggs, and they got Daniel Hunter. Look at the Chicago Bears. They got Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams and tons of good players. I don't think the Giants were the most improved team by any sense of the word. With that being said, I do think they got a lot better, but I think other teams in better situations got significantly better than the Giants did. I think it's kind of foolish actually to label them as the most improved team, to be honest. If we got like a new quarterback and a top receiver like the Bears did, like, you know what I mean? If you get Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, yeah, we're the most improved team and it's not even close. But we didn't get Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams. We got Malik Neighbors only. So I do think that we got better, but not to that degree. I think you probably are in the same boat as I am. I think multiple teams got significantly better compared to, what the Giants kind of did here, which they got better, but marginally compared to those clubs.
Well, I'll go over some of the other teams that were listed in this article, and we can kind of like debate whether or not the Giants improved more than the Chicago Bears, as you mentioned. I agree with you. I think that the Bears are a more improved team. I mean, they did some serious stuff on the offensive side of the ball. You mentioned Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. Didn't even mention Keenan Allen. What an addition. And the fact that Montez Sweat was a midseason acquisition for them, Bears definitely got better. But this is an interesting one. Washington Commanders. I want to have that kind of little back and forth with you, Alex. Which team got better this offseason? The Washington Commanders or the New York Giants? Now, the Commanders obviously land the quarterback that they wanted. They got Jaden Daniels with the number 2 overall pick. But outside of that, I mean, did they make a ton of additions to their roster in free agency and across the board? Bobby Wagner was a big pull for them. Dorrance Armstrong. I guess that they are a pretty big, pretty largely improved team this year, but who do you think? I think it's most relevant because they're both in the division, Alex. Commanders or Giants? Who improved their roster more this season?
Dude, it's the Commanders. Are we being honest? Are we being serious here? Jaden Daniels is just such a good football player. I freaking love Jaden Daniels. It's going to pain me to watch him on the Commanders because I loved him as a prospect. He is going to be so electric. Now the question is, do the Commanders ruin him? That's another story. We'll see if they destroy everyone that they've got. But they added Austin Eckler as well, and they added a couple more pieces, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't they add another cornerback? I feel like they added a corner too. I don't remember. I gotta look it up. Maybe I can find.
The Commanders added Mike Sainristil in the second round, who's really good and who I like a lot out of Michigan, slot cornerback. They also added Jeremy
Nick
Chin,
Allegretti,
safety, Frankie Louvu as well. They did add some talent.
Tyler Biadasz. They added him as center.
Johnny Newton in the second round, which was an absolute steal. I don't know how he fell to the second round. So, yeah, the Commanders, I mean, listen, you're not wrong. The Commanders definitely added some serious talent this offseason, but I do think it's a stronger debate than what you're making it out to be. I know it's because of your love of the LSU gunslinger, Jaden Daniels.
Value. It's the value of quarterback position. Like, if Jaden Daniels is a good player...
roster, though. The overall roster. I mean, Brian Burns is a pretty huge addition. Sucks. Malik Neighbors. The Giants roster is, I think, still... I mean, it was better than the Commanders last year, and it might be better if you... Who?
Just wait until they trade for Brandon Ayuk, and
they're
going to look a lot better because apparently him and Jaden Daniels like really good friends. Guys, like if the Commanders go and get Brandon Ayuk, the NFC East is going to be a gauntlet of really freaking good teams. You know what I mean? I mean, look, the Commanders are historically bad, but man, that is going to be a really hard, really difficult division to survive in. The Giants, they can't just get marginally better. They have to get leaps and freaking bounds better, or they are going to get buried for the next 5 to 6 years unless they somehow stumble upon a god of a quarterback. It is going to be very hard to compete in this division.
On top of that, not only hard to compete in this division as a team, but as a cornerback if the Commanders land Brandon Ayuk. And that's one of the positions where, sure, you could argue the Giants improved at cornerback, but not enough. You know, they added Andrew Phillips, who should be an upgrade in the nickel for them, but they didn't add a solid, reliable number 2 cornerback. I think that's the biggest misstep that the Giants had this offseason, was not bringing in more cornerback talent. It's Deonte Banks versus the world for the most part, and I'm not saying that because I don't have confidence in Cordell Flott, Nick McLeod, or Andrew Phillips, or any of these guys. But let's be realistic. We're talking about projection players that we are hoping take a step forward and become very good players for the Giants, not players who are very good players for the Giants. And that's kind of the difference here and why I get concerned looking at the wide receiver talent in this division. CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Terry McLaurin, and maybe you throw Brandon Ayuk into that mix. I mean, good luck. It's going to get really scary for this Giants secondary, potentially, unless those guys do take that step forward. So that would be the biggest misstep for me. And the fact that the Commanders did add Mike Sainristil in the second round and upgraded at corner, I think that might be the argument for them as the more improved team. But I want to now dive into the kind of second half of this, Alex, and it's what Connor Orr's reasoning was. So, like I said, he mentioned Brian Burns being added to the mix. He mentioned Malik Neighbors being added to the mix. But he did say that the drawback, he thinks that losing Wink Martindale was a drawback. I know that I've shared a contrarian opinion to that before on this show. I think that losing Wink Martindale was addition by subtraction. I think that Shane Bowen's defense is going to lead to greater performances, more conservative zone defense, more pass rushing for Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. I actually think this Giants defense will be better and is going to be an improved unit this year. But the most intriguing thing that Connor Orr included in this article is, let me read the direct quote. I'll throw the Giants into the ring for two reasons. Brian Burns changes the calculus of the defense. I agree. And I like the combination of Brian Dable and Drew Lock, and I'm very curious to see if it ends up bearing some Geno Smithian fruit for the Giants. So that is a very interesting quote, and there's definitely a lot to unpack from that. So, Alex, what's your instant reaction to that quote? That's what I want to get from you first and foremost. The idea that there could be Geno Smithian fruit to bear from pairing Drew Lock with Brian Dable. I got to hear your thoughts on that one.
Oh, God. I don't really get that one. I think that it's fun and dandy to consider, like, oh, like Drew Lock, he's got a really good arm. Drew Lock is like one of the most inaccurate passers you'll ever see. Like, the guy can throw it 70 yards, but the guy can't hit the side of a barn. Like, he's not an accurate quarterback, and he's not a mobile quarterback. Are we gonna sit here and look? Geno Smith is for what it's worth. There's two things that Geno Smith is really, really good at. One, he has really good processing. He can get through his progressions and get the ball to his receivers. The Seattle offensive line is just horrible. The second thing is he's a leader, man. Freaking Geno Smith is a good leader. You watch him, you hear him when he's mic'd up. That guy is a good freaking leader, right? So he can process, and he's a good leader, and he's pretty accurate, right? He's a pretty accurate quarterback. Drew Lock does not come off to me as like a high-profile leader. Drew Lock does not come off to me as a guy that can get out of the pocket and make like crazy throws on the run and dominate when the play falls apart, when the offensive line is poor. I mean, there's a reason he was backing up Geno Smith. The third reason is he is not an accurate player. Like, there's a lot of reasons that Geno Smith is significantly better than Drew Lock. I don't think that Brian Dable giving Drew Lock second option value there. Like, he's focused on Daniel Jones. Like, Drew Lock is going to benefit, but is he going to get good enough in one offseason to become Geno Smith level of talent? No, like, that is so unrealistic. I can't even begin to break into why that would be the most unrealistic thing. It is the most unrealistic thing. We're assuming that he's going to get Drew Lock to a point where he's going to have a Geno Smith-esque renaissance late in his career, or at least, towards like the latter end of his prime, I guess you could say at this point. He's not that old, but he's not that good. So, yeah, I don't see that. I don't think that that's even realistic. If the Giants thought that Drew Lock could be Geno Smith, they wouldn't have signed him to a 1-year deal. They would have signed him to a 2-year deal, given him a little bit more time, actually thought he could be something in their long-term future. 1-year deal does not indicate much of a commitment to a player. They could extend him after that, but you're assuming that the only way Drew Lock, and they've already said this, and I take this at face value, he is not starting for the Giants. Daniel Jones is their starting quarterback. So unless Daniel Jones gets hurt, Drew Lock is not going to play. So where on earth does he get the playing time if he's not playing to develop into a player that's going to be like really good for the Giants? I think that is the most ridiculous take. Drew Lock is here for 1 year, $5 million. He's probably gone after that. He is just an experienced quarterback. The Giants don't have to pay a lot of money to. They didn't want to give the money that Tyrod Taylor got. I think the Jets gave him a nice little contract. So, they wanted to go with a cheaper option with experience who could throw the ball deep downfield, because Brian Dable is going to run an explosive offense that focuses on downfield production. And Drew Lock has a cannon for an arm. It's inaccurate. He's like basically with like Josh Allen, if Josh Allen never got better. You know what I mean? Like, it was just inaccurate, but tons of arm talent. That's kind of what Drew Lock is. Every now and then he'll have like a couple of really nice throws, but he'll sail some throws into free safety hands. So, I don't want to see him starting games, mainly because I don't think he's that good. But, I also, not sure what Daniel Jones is going to do this year. So I guess like let the best man win at the same time. But the Giants have been pretty blatant. I mean, Drew Lock has said it himself. I am backing up Daniel Jones. So the fact that people think that he's going to be a Geno Smith level thing, I don't see it personally. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
I don't necessarily see it either. And I think that because the topic here was most improved team, and he brought up Drew Lock as being the reason why the Giants could be that, in my opinion, the Giants downgraded at backup quarterback. Tyrod Taylor, to me, is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. He's consistent, he's reliable, he's a veteran, he's a good football player when he's healthy. Tyrod Taylor has his injury problems, but he is a very good backup quarterback. The Giants undoubtedly, in my opinion, lowered their floor at backup quarterback with Drew Lock versus with Tyrod Taylor. I think that Tyrod Taylor objectively gives you a higher floor as a backup quarterback than Drew Lock, and maybe some disagree with me, but that's my opinion on that. So to say that the Giants improved their roster by signing Drew Lock and letting Tyrod Taylor go is a little bit of a head scratcher for me. But I will say, yeah, Drew Lock has potential. He's still young. He has been able to develop behind Geno Smith for a season now, so maybe he learned something from Geno Smith during his time in Seattle, and maybe he will be more suited for a starting role somewhere down the line. But Geno Smith's breakout also wasn't this early in his career. It was actually much later in his career, so to make the comparison is even weird in that regard. But potentially, with Brian Dable getting his hands on Drew Lock and allowing him to grow in his system, maybe we do see some improvements from Drew Lock, but I think that it's crazy to expect to see him develop into a high-quality starter and get a Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith level contract down the line. To make that an expectation for Drew Lock is crazy. To make it a hope, like a dream, sure, okay, that's fine, but to consider this team improved because of Drew Lock being here, again, doesn't make a ton of sense to me. The way that I see it, if Drew Lock does take the field this season, something went wrong for the New York Giants. He's not supposed to play this year. Daniel Jones is supposed to be the starter for 17 games. And if we do see Drew Lock on the field, unless he immediately looks like he's making that Geno Smith leap, I don't want to see him on the field. I would rather see the second-year talent that won games for the Giants last year in Tommy DeVito, the young, coming off of a rookie season that showed some promise as an undrafted player, now has a full year under his belt. I mean, listen, I don't know if you agree with me on that one, Alex, but if the Giants get to the point where they're taking Daniel Jones out of the lineup, I personally would rather see Tommy DeVito in the lineup. And I know I'm coming into this with a whole lot of bias, for sure. I'm biased for Tommy DeVito, but I don't know. Maybe you feel the same way. Like, we've seen a good sample size of Drew Lock in the NFL with more than one football team. We have not seen a huge sample size of Tommy DeVito. The small sample size that we saw produced some wins for the Giants. So if there is potential there, if Brian Dable feels like there's potential there, I feel like it's greater than what Drew Lock possesses. So if we are at the point during the regular season where we're taking Daniel Jones out of the lineup, I don't think I'm banking on the Drew Lock year, what would this be, year 6 leap, year 6 breakout. I'd be banking on the developmental step in year 2 from Tommy DeVito. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, look, I'm fine with that. Listen, so here's kind of where like I say at the moment, I like the fact that Tommy DeVito is cheap. And the reason I like that is because the Giants are not in a place to contend for a Super Bowl right now. If you're the Jets, I don't want Tommy DeVito as my backup, right? If you're the Chiefs, I don't want Tommy DeVito as my backup. Why? Because he's inexperienced. He's never been to a playoff game. He's never played some of these better teams. Like, he's just not ready for that. So, but for the Giants, who are like kind of still rebuilding, he's a good cheap option that you can get experience to when the time is right, and he can come in and he can help you and he can develop, and it's really affordable and there's nothing to lose. So I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? But if we were a better team, really competitive, I'd want more of a Tyrod Taylor backing me up. I'd want more of like a Sam Darnold. I'd want more of someone with experience. You know, it could be anybody that has experience against, you know, in the playoffs. Maybe like a Joe Flacco type of guy. Like, that's who I'd be looking up as my backup. But if you're the Giants and you're doing, and we are where we are with the roster building right now, you know, giving Tommy DeVito opportunities and reps is like generally a good thing, because Drew Lock is probably not here long term, and you're better off giving the experience to someone who might have some more developmental upside and a little bit more, I guess juice in the tank and gas in the tank, and seeing kind of what he has to do in terms of his development. There's a lot of untapped potential there. I'd like to see where it would go. We kind of know what Drew Lock is. I don't think he's going to get like exponentially better anytime soon. So yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you there.
Good. I'm actually glad that we're all on the same page there because I wasn't 100% sure if we would be. I know I'm obviously a Tommy DeVito diehard, and not everybody feels the same way as me. But Drew Lock, unless we see the Geno Smith leap, yeah, I think it's safe to say that he's just going to be the 1 year backup of this team, and then the Giants are going to look elsewhere next offseason. But I guess we'll see how it goes. But again, overall, just to kind of wrap up the general topic of this episode, I do feel like the Giants are one of the most improved teams in the NFL this offseason. Adding Malik Neighbors and Brian Burns, huge additions. So this team is improved in my mind. They made some upgrades this offseason, and they are a better roster. But I just think it's crazy that Connor Orr used Drew Lock as part of his reasoning for why he believes that they are potentially one of the most improved teams in the NFL. That just feels so far out of left field to me. And generally speaking, while the Giants are a very improved team this offseason, I think that there are other teams that got a little bit luckier in their draft positioning and were able to upgrade their roster a little bit more. So the Giants, again, our expectations for them are a little bit mixed right now. I know a lot of fans feel like we're bouncing back into the postseason. Alex and I feel like maybe there's a chance they could be competitive for the postseason, but we're probably not banking on it. But we'll see how it goes. And of course, it's going to be fun as we get into the rest of this summer. Training camp, Alex, it's right around the corner. We're just about a month away. That's really exciting. We get to see some of these camp battles and see if Drew Lock starts lighting it up in training camp and potentially gets taking that step towards the Geno Smith leap. That's totally, I guess, a possibility. But training camp is where we're going to start to get some of the answers to those questions, and we're going to have a lot of fun content for you guys right here on Fireside Giants all throughout training camp and every other portion of the offseason. But that pretty much wraps this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. Listen to Apple or Spotify. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we will catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.